Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something that every single future civil servant is going to face, that constant battle between just following the rules and actually getting the right thing done.
You know, this quote from a recent UPSC paper, wow, it really nails a dilemma that public servants face every single day. The big question is, right? When does following the rules to the letter actually end up breaking the whole point of the rule in the first place?
Okay, so how are we going to tackle this? We'll start by really getting a grip on this form versus substance idea. Then, we're going to look at two big, opposing ethical ideas. One is all about duty, the other is all about consequences. We'll see how they clash in the real world for administrators, and then we'll try to find a way to bring them together, a path I like to call principled pragmatism. All right, let's jump in.
All right, first up, let's really pin down this central conflict. What are we actually talking about when we say form versus substance?
You know, I like to think of it like this. It's the difference between just blindly following a recipe word for word and actually cooking a fantastic meal. Form is the how. It's all the rules, the procedures, the paperwork, but substance, that's the why. It's about the real-world impact, the actual goal you're trying to hit.
And when form wins out over substance, well, the results can be just heartbreaking. You get people who desperately need food rations turned away because of a tiny typo, or workers who've earned their wages but are left waiting because of some bureaucratic snag. This is exactly where following the rules can lead directly to real human suffering. And what does that do? It just erodes people's trust in the whole system.
So this whole idea of sticking to the rules, it actually has a name. It brings us to our first major ethical framework, which is called deontology. And this is the philosophy that basically says form, the rules, is your absolute moral duty.
Yeah, deontology is pretty much the rule-book approach to ethics. Thinkers like Immanuel Kant were big on this. The core idea is that some actions are just plain right or wrong, and it doesn't matter what happens afterwards. Your job, your duty, is to follow those rules. End of story. And right here, you see the big problem with sticking only to the rules. On one hand, the rulebook is great. It's like a shield, right? It creates order, stops people from making random decisions, and it keeps things fair. But if you follow it blindly, that same shield can turn into a cage and end up causing the exact kind of harm it was supposed to stop. Okay, so if the rulebook approach can sometimes lead us astray, what's the other option? Well, that brings us to the second big framework, and this one is all about the end goal. It's all about the substance.
This is called teleology, or you might hear it called consequentialism, and it's basically the end goal approach. It says that whether an action is right or wrong depends completely on its results. So, for you as a future civil servant, it means you judge what you do based on the actual impact it has on people's lives. It's that classic idea, right? The ends justify the means.
Now, the most famous version of this kind of thinking is utilitarianism. Its core idea is super simple, but really powerful. Just do whatever brings about the greatest good for the greatest number of people. In public service, that translates to making decisions that boost social welfare and help as many people as possible.
And look, this focus on the outcome, it's not just some abstract theory. It's what allows a truly perceptive civil servant to slice through all that red tape and zero in on what really matters, serving the public.
I mean, just look at the examples of these officers. They are perfect illustrations of this teleological approach in action. They knew their job wasn't just to check boxes on a form. No, their goal was to deliver actual drought relief, to get people connected, to provide aid. They put the substance, that real help for real people, way ahead of just following procedure.
Okay, so here we are. We've got these two big ideas pulling in opposite directions. Deontology, the path of duty, and teleology, the path of results. So what happens when a civil servant is stuck in the middle and has to choose one over the other in a real-life situation?
This is where it all gets incredibly real. Let's look at that first scenario, slum eviction. The rulebook approach, deontology, is crystal clear. They're on illegal land, you have to evict, uphold the law. But the end goal approach, teleology, says, wait a second, let's delay this until we can find a humane way to rehabilitate these families. See, both sides start from a good place, upholding the law or helping vulnerable people, but they lead to completely different actions. And it's the same with disaster relief or whistleblowing. There's just no simple, easy answer.
So, if just following the rules isn't always right, and just focusing on the end goal isn't always right, what's an administrator supposed to do? Well, the answer isn't about picking one side. It's about finding a smart, skillful way to balance both.
The best, most effective civil servants out there. They practice something we can call principled pragmatism. It's this fantastic blend where you respect the rules, you see them as your foundation, but you are always pushing for the best possible outcome. The most just, the most humane.
So how do you do it? It's kind of like a four-step process. First, you have to understand the why behind any rule you're enforcing. Second, you've got to be flexible when you can be, especially if it helps people. Third, and this is a big one, you need the moral courage to actually make a tough judgment call. And finally, it's all about balancing your duty to the law with your deeper, moral duty to the public you serve.
At the end of the day, this is what it all boils down to. The rule book is meant to be a guide, not a cage. The point of governance isn't to have perfect paperwork. The point is to serve the public, to create justice, and to build a better society for everyone. And so that leaves us with the one question that you're going to have to answer again and again in your career. The rules provide order, sure, but it's the outcomes that truly define justice. So as a future administrator, where are you going to draw that line? Because finding that balance, that's not just a challenge, it's the whole ballgame. That's our explainer for today. Thanks for watching.